हरे कृष्णा। तो अभी सुबह के 3:30 बज रहे हैं और सुबह का जो पढ़ना होता है वो बहुत अच्छा होता है। मेरा अभी स्टार्टिंग से यही आदत रहा है कि मैं रात में देर रात तक नहीं पढ़ती। मैं सुबह में ही 3 बजे 3:30 बजे से उठती हूँ और उसी समय से पढ़ना स्टार्ट करती हूँ। तो आइए हम बिना देर किए क्लास 11th NCERT बायोलॉजी का चैप्टर 1 द लिविंग वर्ल्ड स्टार्ट करते हैं। How wonderful is the living world! The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater lakes, desert, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or the attacking shark evokes away and a deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflict and cooperation among members of a among populations of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. This question was too implicit question within it. The first is a technical one and seeks answer to what living is as opposed to the non-living, and the second is a philosophical one and seeks to answer to what the purpose of life is. As scientists, we shall not attempt answering the second question. We will try to reflect on what is living. 1.1 What is living? When we try to define living, we conventionally look for distinctive characteristic exhibited by living organisms. Growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment and mount a suitable response come to our mind immediately as unique feature of living organisms. One can add a few more features like metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organized, interact, and emergence to this list. Let us try to understand each of these. All living organisms grow. All living organisms grow. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are two characteristics of growth. A multicellular organism grows by cell division. In plants, this growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. In animals, this growth is seen only up to a certain stage. However, cell division occurs in certain tissue to replace lost cell. Unicellular organisms also grow by cell division. One can easily observe in vitro this in vitro culture by simply counting the number of cells under the microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive event. One must remember that increase in body mass is considered as growth. Non-living objects also grow if we take increase in body mass as a criteria for growth. Mountain boulders and sand mounds too do grow. However, this kind of growth exhibited by non-living object is by accumulation of material on the surface. In living organisms, growth is from inside. Growth, therefore, cannot be taken as a defining property of living organisms. Conditions under which it can be observed in all living organisms have to be explained, and then we understand that it is a characteristic of living system. A dead organism does not grow. Reproduction likewise is a characteristic of living organisms. In multicellular organisms, reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parent. Invariably and implicitly, we refer to sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by asexual means, also fungi. Asexual means also fungi multiply and spread easily due to the millions of asexual spores they produce. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra, we observe budding. In planaria platforms, we observe true regeneration. Example is regeneration. That is, a fragmented organism regenerate the lost part of its body and becomes a new organism. The fungi, the filamentous algae, the protonoma of mosses all easily multiply by fragmentation. When it comes to unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with growth, that is, increase in number of cells. We have already defined growth as equivalent to increase in cell number or mass. Hence, we notice that in single-celled organism, we are not very clear about the usage of these two terms, growth and reproduction. Further, there are many organisms which do not reproduce, male sterile worker bees, infertile human couples, etc. Hence, reproduction also cannot be an all-inclusive defining characteristic of living organisms. Of course, no non-living object is capable of reproducing or replicating by itself. Another characteristic of life is metabolism. All living organisms are made up of chemicals. These chemicals, small and big, belonging to various classes, size, function, etc., are constantly being made and change into some other biomolecules. These conversions are chemical reactions or metabolic reaction. There are thousands of metabolic reactions occurring simultaneously inside all living organisms, be they unicellular or multicellular. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. No non-living object exhibits metabolism. Metabolic reaction can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free system and isolated metabolic reactions outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube is neither living nor non-living. Hence, while metabolism is a defining feature of all living organisms without exception, isolated metabolic reaction in vitro are not living things, but surely living reaction. Hence, cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of the life forms. Perhaps the most obvious and technically complicated feature of all living organisms is this ability to sense their surroundings or environment and respond to these environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, or biological. We sense our environment through our sense organs. Plants respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, other organism, pollutants, etc. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryote can sense and respond to environmental cues. Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. All organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. All organisms therefore are aware of their surroundings. Human being is the only organism who is aware of himself. That is, has self-consciousness. Consciousness therefore becomes as a defining property of living organism. When it comes to human beings, it is all the more difficult to define the living state. We observe patients lying in coma in hospitals, virtually supported by machines which replace heart and lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness as such. Patients who never come back to normal life, living or non-living. In higher classes, you will come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying interactions in properties of tissue are not present in the constituent cell, but arises as a result of interaction among the constituent cells. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituent of the organelle, but arise as a result of interaction among the molecular components comprising the organelle. Organelle. These interactions result in emergent properties at a higher level of organization. This phenomenon is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. There we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving and self-regulating interactive system capable of responding to external stimuli. Biology is a study of life on earth. Biology is the study of evolution of living organisms on Earth. All living organisms, present, past, and future, are linked to one another by the sharing of the common genetic material, but to varying degrees. One point to diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plant, insects, bird, your pets, or the other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observation in, the range and variety of organism that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms in it. Mm. Each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represents a species. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This refers to biodiversity, or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know the plants and animals in our own area are by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place, even within a country. Probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other to refer to organism we are talking about. Hence, there is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established a procedure to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principle and criteria, which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN). You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN). The scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organisms. Biologists follow universally accepted principle to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components: the generic name and the specific epithet. The system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. This naming system, given by Carolus Linnaeus, is being practiced by biologists all over the world. This naming system, using a two-word format, was found convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is written by as Mangifera indica. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus, while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. First, other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. The biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Second, the first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. 3. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are uh, separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. 4. The first word denoting the genus start with the capital letter, while the specific epithet start with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Example of Mangifera indica, illustrated. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet that is at the end of the biological name and is written in an abbreviated form. Example, Mangifera indica Lin. It indicates that this species was first described as Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animal or dog, cats or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain character with the organism in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will see dogs and not cats. Now, if we were to think of else since we know what we are talking about. Similarly, suppose we were to say mammals, you would of course think of animals with external ears and body hairs. Likewise, in plant, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture in each of our minds will be of wheat plants, not of rice or any other plants. Hence, all these dogs, cat, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study organism. The specific term for these categories is taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dog are all taxa. But you know that a dog is a mammal and mammal are animal. Therefore, animals, mammals, and dog represent taxa at different levels. Hence, based on a characteristic, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is taxonomy. External and internal structure, along with the structure of cell development, process, and ecological information of organism are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature are the processes that are basics to taxonomy. Taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interesting to knowing more and more about the various kinds of organism, particularly with reference to their own use. In early days, human beings needed to find source for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelters. Hence, the earliest classification were based on the uses of various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms, but their diversity, but also the relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematic is derived from the Latin verb systema, which means a systematic arrangement of organism. Linnaeus used system naturally as the title of his publication. This scope of systematics was later enlarged to include in identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. 1.3 Taxonomy Categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Since the category is part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called the taxonomy category, and all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each organ category, referred to as unit of classification, in fact represents a rank and is commonly termed as taxon, plural taxa. Taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represent a group of organisms sharing common features like three pairs of jointed legs. It means insects are recognizable concrete object which can be classified and thus were given a rank or category. Can you name other such groups of organisms? Remember, Groups represent category. Category further denote rank. Each rank or taxon, in fact, represent a unit of classification. These taxonomic group categories are distinct biological entities and not merely morphological aggregate. Taxonomic studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum, or division, or for plants, class, order, family, genus, and species. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdom, have species as the lowest category. Now the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirement is the knowledge of characters of an individual or group of organisms. This help in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind of organism as well as of other kinds of organism. 1.3.1 Species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Let us consider Mangifera indica, Solanum, tuberosa, potato, and Panthera leo, lion. All the three names indica, tuberosa, and leo represent the specific epithet, while the first word Mangifera, Solanum, and Panthera are genera and represent another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithet representing different organisms but having morphological similarity. For example, Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and Solanum include species like Nigrum and Melangina. Human beings belong to the species sapiens, which is grouped in genus Homo. The scientific name thus for human being is written as Homo sapiens. 1.3.2 Genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to species of other genera. We can say that genera are aggregates of closely related species. For example, potato, tomato, and brinjal are the three different species but all belonging to the genus Solanum. Uh, Solanum, lion, Panthera leo, leopard, P. pardus, and tigers, P. tigris, with several common features, are all species of the genus Panthera. This genus differs from another genus, Felis, which includes cats. 1.3.3 Family. The next category. The next category. The next category, family, has a group of related genera with a still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. Families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. Among plants, for example, three different genera, Solanum, Petronia, and Datura, are placed in the family Solanaceae. Among animals, for example, genus Panthera comprising lion, tiger, leopard is put along with genus Felis, cats, in the family Felidae. Similarly, if you observe the features of a cat and a dog, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. They are separated into two different families, Felidae and Canidae, respectively. 1.3.4 Order. You have seen earlier that categories like species, genus and families are based on a number of similar characters. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters. Order, being a higher category, is the assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. The similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera included in a family. In a family, plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polymonials, mainly based on the floral characters. The animals order Carnivora includes families like Felidae and Cancidae. 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 1.3.5 class. This category includes related orders. For example, order Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla, and gibbon, is placed in class Mammalia along with other carnivora that includes animals like tiger, cat, and dogs. Dog. Class Mammalia has other orders also. 1.3.6 Phylum. Classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, bird, along with mammals constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these based on the common features like presence of notochord on dorsal hollow neural systems are included in phylum Chordata. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. 1.3.7 Kingdom. All animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category called Kingdom Animalia in the classification system of animals. The kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as animal and plant kingdom. The taxonomic categories from species to kingdom have been shown in ascending order, starting with species in figure 1.1. These are broad categories. However, taxonomists have also developed subcategories in hierarchy to facilitate more sound and sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in figure 1.1. Can you recall the basic of arrangement? Say, for example, as we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that the members within the taxon share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification becomes more complex. फिगर 1.1 में दिया गया है टैक्सोनॉमिक कैटेगरीज सो अ हायरार्कियल अरेंजमेंट इन असेंडिंग ऑर्डर सबसे नीचे है वो स्पीसीज उसके ऊपर जीनस देन फैमिली ऑर्डर क्लास फाइलम और डिवीजन और किंगडम तो इसमें हम इतना ही रहने देते हैं और इसमें बस ज़्यादा नहीं बचा है थोड़ा सा ही बचा है तो हम उसमें सेकेंड पार्ट में हम उसको कवर करते हैं हरे कृष्णा